Word of Sports Friends podcast.
We're sticking with the ice, Big Ben.
We're back on the ice, like Mad Dog said.
Big Ben.
That's it. Well and welcome to Already Won Sports Friends podcast. We're back on the ice, like Mad Dog said. Last week we had an ice hockey player. This week,
ice hockey player. I get what you're saying because you're used to the field hockey, which you just call hockey. And if you ever say that to someone here that hockey is field hockey, they'll say that's a girl's sport. Sorry, Ben. I'm just saying it like it is.
Well, it's important for me to know. It's important for me to understand. But we stay on the ice. February's
on the
cold.
ice. We haven't let the ice. Exactly. Look at this. White, the theme of the color of season 3, like snow and ice, and we're on the ice. We're not leaving the ice.
Well, not this week, at least, anyway. So last week we had Sydney. What a game changer. This week's game changer, we have young Achterberg from the Netherlands, right? That was, let's see if I got that right. But tell us who Jan is. Tell us what he's done and what he's done in his career and stuff like that.
Well, Jan's going to give us the blow-by-blow, but he's a former long-track speed skater. He's currently living in the Netherlands, or from the Netherlands, but currently still there in the Netherlands. And now he's working with Next Move Sports Ministry in the Netherlands. So I think it's going to be great to hear what he's doing. You've also discovered some things that he runs marathons or something like that. I mean, once you start to do sports, you can't leave it. So it'll be interesting to see how he got from skating to marathons to ministry. To marathons to ministry, or maybe the ministry's in there before or after, in the middle. We don't know. Or maybe it's over. Maybe that's the center.
Yeah, we're going to find out. Well, his story, I was on a leadership cohort with him for a year, so I got to know him, and it was cool hearing his story. But yeah, at the age of 22, decided to retire because he couldn't understand how sport and faith go together. Later on, when he was 24, ended up, kind of getting to a national level, and then kind of continued from there. But a fascinating story, I think we're going to hear. And it's good to have a Dutchman on there and to hear how sport and faith go together. And like you said, we're going to dig in to this crazy ultra running. What drives a man to do 14 marathons in 14 days? That's a question we want answered on this podcast.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do. Let's also give him some quick fire because I want to see if he's a true Dutchman or not. So
okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Without further ado, let's bring in this week's guest. All right, guys, welcome to the podcast this week. A very special guest, Jan Achterberg. Welcome, Jan.
Good day, guys.
Yeah, good to have you. Did I mess up the surname, or was it okay?
Well, you're okay.
His Dutch is coming. Like it.
I need Dutch courage to say it. But what does it mean, your last name, Jan? You said it means something pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it means behind the mountain. Yeah, that's me, Mr. Behind the Mountain.
But what are you doing behind the mountain? He's ready to pounce. He's coming up.
I live in the Netherlands, guys, so we don't even actually have mountains. You know that, right? So yeah, you know why Dutch people are people of great faith, right?
I don't know. Ben, do you?
Well, Scripture says faith can move mountains, and we don't have any. So
there you go.
It must be. Yeah, people of great faith.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh,
good.
I think we've got Mr. Behind the Mountains. We need to give him a quick fire to get to know him a little bit better, I think.
So here we go. We're going to give you about 5 different things. Again, it's whatever. The right answer is whatever comes out of your mouth. So it's either or. So don't say both or I like both, or just kind of choose one, whatever comes. Yep. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, first one. Potatoes or pasta?
Pastas.
Ooh, a Dutchman saying pasta.
Yeah.
Slow or stamina?
Ooh, stamina.
Okay, good one, Ben. Skating or jogging?
Skating.
Okay. Steak or fish?
Steak.
Oh, wow. I don't think you're. We got to figure out where he's living. He's not definitely from the Netherlands. Last one, for vacation purposes, would you rather go to the beach or the mountains? Well, it could be a dead ringer right here.
It's mountains.
Oh
mountains.
no, his name is predestined. All right.
Yeah.
This season within Already Won is called Game Changers, and the first question is a great way to get to know what God's done in your life. So when did God change your life, and why is he the ultimate game changer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in general, I was raised by Christian parents, which I'm very happy with. And so there was not really one big moment that God really changed my whole life. But I think when he really changed my life onto the path where I am right now is when I was on an outreach program in Malawi, Africa. It was in the summer, so I wasn't doing a lot of training, and I decided to go on this outreach program. And I wasn't doing a lot with my faith, so I don't really know how I got on this program. Some friends told me to come with them, and I went. And the guy that run the project there, he was really showing me the relevance of the church, basically, and relevance of faith within a different context. So that's where I've sort of started my journey into, hey, what does faith actually mean to me and for me, and how can I live it out?
How old were you then?
Probably 20, 21. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's almost 20 years ago.
The warm heart of Africa, eh? I'm telling you, it just changed when you go there.
So we know you're a long track speed skater. So tell us about the best way to move forwards and your sporting career.
Yeah, about skating. I mean, the best way forward is by skating on natural ice. I don't know if you've ever done it, but yeah. So if you know skating, it's a sideways motion that propels you forwards. So, and you're always in and out of balance. So there's this Canadian speed skater. She said it's the best way of moving forward because you're always, it feels like you're dancing. And then if you go on natural ice, like snowy lakes or the canals that we have in the Netherlands, yeah, it's just quiet. And that's probably the best way forward if we talk about, like, think about riding a bike in nature, but then without the bike, basically. Gliding. So that's really beautiful. That's what I enjoyed the most, of course, and doing it in a competition form is different, but yeah, it's a really beautiful feeling.
So tell us how you got into it then. So for those that don't know the sport, tell us a little bit about it. Obviously it's big in the Netherlands, but a few of our coaches are from different parts of the world. So some in Malawi and some beyond as well. But those who have never heard of it, tell us a little bit about it and how you got into it and how you started competing.
So yeah, I as a young kid, I was into sports in general. I also did a lot of football. Talking about coaches, at one point I had both coaches coming to me, football and skating, saying, "Hey, Jan, you need to choose." And my football coach was really honest. He said, "Jan, you're a good guy. I like you on my team. You're strong. You run a lot, which is good. But if you want to make it into a sport and become a professional, you should go for skating." So he made that decision for me. So then skating, it's a very technical sport. It's a lot of technique. So you have to sort of start young, or that's ideally to learn the techniques. But, you know, the peak age of a speed skater is probably around between 25 and 30, somewhere there. So it's a long run up until you might make it. So, you know, at age 14, 15, you sort of come on this pathway of, okay, you're a talent and we'll nurture you until you're ready, basically. And so that's what I was on up until 2024, between that age, where I reached the national level. And so the national level in the Netherlands is really, I always say, if you're like, so I was in the long distance. So the longest distance in the Olympics for skating, ice skating, is 10Ks, and it's a time trial. So I always say I was good enough to not finish last on the Olympics, but that would mean I was only top 50 in the Netherlands, and you only have 2 spots for the Olympics per country. So I wasn't close enough to that part yet. And then there's a separate competition here in the Netherlands that's really close to cycling, basically. So we call it marathon skating. It's a peloton race. And it's not about time, but it's just about who finishes first. And it's first, and it has a lot of resemblance with cycling, but then on the ice. And we also do track races, but you also do races on natural ice, like mountain lakes in Europe, or we go to Scandinavia for the really cold parts of the Europe, or if we're lucky, we do some skating in the Netherlands during the winter. And then you have those races are between 50 and even 200 Ks maximum. And that was basically my niche, my specialty. So yeah, that's me.
Wow. So after you got the national level, then you went into more of the longer distances, or even from younger age, were you doing more? Because that's a long way to go on the ice, I have to say. So yeah, was that what happened?
Yeah, you just get into, so everybody starts in the Netherlands, everybody starts with long track skating, the single distance. So, and there's different distances, like 500 meters up until 10K. So there's options for everybody. And, as a young kid, it was pretty obvious that the short distances were not my specialty. I just didn't have the acceleration, and so yeah, you float to the longer distances, and then one day you try the marathons, and you're like, oh yeah, this is me.
Well, we'll come back later, talk about running marathons like you do now a lot more as well. So you've always been, loved that longer distance stuff, which is impressive. But there was a moment, when you were 22 where, you went to Malawi. So you said 2021. Yeah. So obviously that was a big pivotal moment for you when you started kind of, understanding what it meant for God to be a game changer. Like then at 22, you had to retire for a while. Tell us a little bit about what happened there. Were you kind of wrestling between like, what is it? Was it around you had to compete on a Sunday, or what was it like just being a Christian in that world, and what led to that decision? And then later on as well, you kind of went back to it. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in that time. Also, just in general life, ending my studies, finding a job or not, that kind of decisions. But also coming back from Malawi and trying to figure out who God was for me meant that I had to figure that out within the skating context. I wasn't doing a lot with my faith within the sporting context. So getting back into skating, I struggled. I struggled with, what does it mean that I'm a Christian in this context? Does it have any relevance? Yeah, within the Dutch church context also, it always felt to me that it was not that you can do sport and faith together, but it's always that it's either sports or faith. So within the sporting context, there was not really a person that understood that sport or Christianity had a relevance within sports. But in the church setting, it was sort of similar. There was nobody that really understood that, I had such a big passion for sports. And so it always felt like I had to make some kind of a choice. And so after trying stuff, I got stuck on that point. They're like, okay, it's just a choice. And then if you make it a very, if you narrow it down very much, then if you choose God or sports, eventually the choice is very easy. You always choose for God, because if you're a Christian and you're serious about your sport or about your faith, then yeah, it's more important. So that's where I sort of landed at first. It also had to do with a change of the competition. So it used to also always be on Saturday evenings, but because of live television, they wanted to do the competition on Sunday mornings. So that would have meant that throughout the winter, I would compete every Sunday. And so I wouldn't be able to make it to church. And for somebody trying to find Christianity and get back into it, not going to church, I figured that's not the best solution, to not go to church. So that's where I sort of decided, okay, I'll give up my skating career, basically. Yeah.
This is interesting, right, Carl? Because I think you've got sport and you've got faith, right? So did you have anyone advising you at that point, kind of, so you made that decision at 22 to step away, but then obviously came back. Kind of, did someone help? Was there a mentor or someone helping you saying, hey, look, you can connect your faith in the world of sport? Or like, kind of, what happened there? Was it what led to going back into this world of sport?
So it was actually, that's a cool story. There was actually a guy, he came to me after like a church meeting, not long after I sort of announced that I was stepping back from skating. And he said, Jan, I totally get it. I was like, what do you mean? And he said, no, sports and faith, they just don't go together, right? And I knew this guy really well. And when I was going back home and was thinking about his comment, and later I talked to him about it, I said, yeah, well, it's all nice that you say that. But, if you look at me and how God has created me, there's basically one conclusion to be made, and that is that he made me for sports. So if you say sports and faith don't go together, that's a terrible joke God made out of my life. And then this guy said very profoundly, he said, you should figure this one out, because you're right, but we don't know the answers. And so from there, I sort of started looking around in the Netherlands for organizations and people that could help me, that landed me with Athletes in Action. Back in the days, was here in the Netherlands doing some community sports. So I started working from there for them. And they encouraged me a lot to just focus on finding the answers for this. How do sport and faith go together?
Game-changing moment, right? To understand that sport and faith can go together, even though There's challenges, of course, compete on a Sunday and loads of things, but that is a game-changing revelation for a lot of people, I'm sure, who've listened around that, right, Carl?
It's big. I mean, listening to you tell it's like the Eric Little story of him competing on Sundays and different things like that. But it's a big thing. We at the time think, oh, it's just a Sunday. Who cares? The kids play a game or have a practice, but it tends to build up, and then that can affect other areas of your life too. Oh, I just want we're on vacation. I don't want to go to church. I'm tired. I don't want to go to church. So it builds up a lot over time, and I think it's a big statement. It's when you're grappling with it. It's a big decision to make. Yeah. So now you've left skating. You've kind of dabbled with AIA, and now you're with Next Move Sports Ministries. Yeah, you work for them now. I think I've heard of them. I knew there was one of the advisors that he's from the U.S. I can't remember his name. He's working with a group that I was working with in Arizona. But I've heard of them before, so I was like, "Oh, Next Move, I got this." So, what's your thing now? How do you see yourself as a game changer now? Like, how is God using you in the ministry that you're in?
Yeah, so within Next Move for the past couple of years, we mainly been working with elite and professional athletes, just supporting them, the Christian ones at least that we know of. I always say, eventually I became the person that I needed to find when I was on that point where I needed to make a decision of, like, how do sports and faith go together? Can they go together? I needed a guy that, does the work that I do now, which is cool. So we support athletes in general, but spiritually. So and then we try to encourage them and grow them into followers of Christ, eventually be the hands and feet for Jesus in their sporting context.
Great, I love that you're now being that person that you need. Yeah. So what kind of things do you how do you help them kind of unpack that then? So what does that look like? I mean, practically say, you've got elite athletes, so you get alongside them, do Bible studies with them, kind of explain yes, you are born to play. Sport can be an act of worship. Like, what kind of things do you do practically around that? Within the ministry.
So we run Bible study groups here with Dutch athletes, but also some internationals or guys that have made transfers outside the Netherlands. So it's an online group mainly, and then I do a lot of one-on-ones, especially here in the Netherlands. I think culturally wise, we are a very Calvinistic country, so there's a lot of Christians here or people with a Christian background, or Christian parents or grandparents who still think sport and faith don't go together. And very traditionally brought up in church that you have to be there on Sundays. So that's a lot of the work that we do also, is just opening up their eyes to hey, you can use your talent to glorify God. And this is a way to do it. And yes, you need Christian community, but there's different ways to get that and organize it. And so that's where we are mostly doing our work. Yeah.
And that's so important, right? Because now Sunday is massively for elite sport. There's so much sport that goes on, so I think it's important, like you say, to be able to support athletes in some way, to have some sort of Christian community and stuff. And it's a huge debate. Like when I was at Bible college around that, of course, you be part of a church, you've got to make sure you've got church discipline and sacraments, all this kind of thing. But ultimately, if you're in that world, it's a unique world that you need to understand that world, So to have someone like yourself to come alongside who understands the world, but also believes in the local church as well. We always say we believe in the local church. Yes, we obviously, of course, support the local church, but at the same time, we know that the world of sport is a unique place. So having someone like yourself working for, Next Move Sports Ministries is so important. Now, you've recently raised money for the ministry in an amazing way. You mentioned you did some long distances on the ice. You now do some long distances on the road, and you did 14 marathons in 14 days, which 1% of people do a marathon. 1% of those 1% do an ultra marathon. So I think you're in the 0.00001% of people, whatever.
I could do a marathon in 14 years if you give me time. I could probably get it. What does that make me? Point.
I don't know. We don't want to go into that one.
Yeah. I'm behind the mountain still.
with Mr. Behind the Mountains himself. But Jan, tell us about that. Tell us about how on earth that was. 14 marathons in 14 days. How did you do it? And what was the purpose of doing it?
Yeah, so like I heard an ultra runner, Christian ultra runner once say, he said, God just gave me the ability to suffer, and I think I understand him. And so yeah, I was doing some running after skating, and when I was life changes, so I got into running a bit, and then I did my first marathon, and I was like, yeah, this is nice. And then other people will be like, oh, are you going for faster times? But then I know if you want to do a fast marathon, what it takes, you need to do a lot of intervals. And I had done enough of those in my skating career. I was like, no, I'm not going to do intervals. So then I found this crazy community called Ultra Runners. That was like 3-4 years ago. And I started to getting into that. And I was like, yeah, this is good. It's just endurance running, no intervals. It's not about speed. You can even do some walking if you want. And you can eat all you want. So that was my kind of community. And so, I got into that. And then through a colleague of mine about 2 years ago, she was like, hey, we should do a fundraiser. We should, raise more awareness for how sport and faith can go together. Your story is really, really strong. And so this got into my head. And then, of course, the Olympics were in Paris, which is reasonably close from the Netherlands. And I was like, hey, how could we connect those two? Sport and faith, and maybe do something. And then I was just doing, Googling on Google Maps, the distance. And I came to find out that if you start from the right point in the Netherlands, it could be 14 marathons. And I was like, I think I can do this. So that's where we set it up. And so it was something sporty. It was like a sporting thing that I was like, oh, that challenges me. But in the same time, it really connected to what I did. And we really at first just made it that it was like a raising awareness for what the work that we do here in the Netherlands. So yeah.
Wow. What was the hardest bit day? Because people normally hit the wall around mile 19 to 20 of one marathon. So did you hit the wall any day, or what was the hardest day?
Yeah, there were some walls. I had probably mentally, I think the first 2-3 days were the toughest, because you sort of have to get in the rhythm, and it didn't really go as smooth. I had a bad sleeping location at the first night where I didn't sleep. And then for the second day, we were supposed to stay at the same place. But I was like, I'm not going to stay here for another night. So we just packed our stuff, put it in the car, and not knowing where to sleep the next night, and started running. So mentally you're organizing everything in. So that was really tough. I was like, oh man, if this is going to be 14 days like this, it's going to be terrible. But everything got better, and we got into the rhythm, and I had a good support team, which was helping me. And I had one guy running with me actually for 12 days out of 14, because he doesn't run on Sunday, which is interesting, by the way. But so that was really good. And physically I hit the wall after 10 days, 11 days, somewhere there. I got like infection on my shin splints. So I had to do, the last 3 days with a little bit more pain.
3 marathons with an infected shin. Wow.
Yeah.
But you lose money, so incredible. Yeah.
No. Thanks.
All I heard was you can eat whatever you want. So I'm already doing that. So maybe 14 marathons in 14 days could work for me. That's amazing. I mean, just even do one marathon, as Ben was saying, is something. But doing 14 in 14 days and doing it as for a cause, it sounds great. So now you're kind of helping other athletes, helping people out with their faith and whatnot. But as you look back in your life, who's been kind of the biggest game changer? I mean, obviously we have different people that we've come along the way, a coach, a friend, a colleague, but is there anyone that sticks out in your mind?
That's a good question. Yeah, there's, of course, several people. Some of them probably, like there's one guy I really know, his name is Jonathan. He's a good friend of mine. He's still around. And he's always been there to support me in ministry settings. He was there when we did Athletes in Action in the Netherlands, and still involved with Next Move. But we talk a lot. He encourages me in ministry in general, just to be better, to be more bold, to grow into that. And then probably on sports and faith, there's not really a person that came close, but it's like the books you read and the persons that inspire you. I mean, you mentioned Eric Liddell and his story. That's something that really stuck with me, and that was actually on the back of our shirts last summer with the running. When I run, I feel his pleasure. That kind of attitude that really inspires us and help me explore more, basically. Yeah.
Even 14 marathons, you still feel that pleasure.
yeah, it's a crazy thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've only done one ultra marathon, and that was hard enough. So, but yeah, you do still feel that pleasure. You do. It's certainly satisfaction at the end of it, for sure.
Especially when you're in the showers.
Yeah, and eating all those calories, right, Cal? There you go.
Bring them on.
So you mentioned a bit of advice, but obviously we train coaches around the world. Have you got any advice for sports friends coaches or those who are involved in sports ministry?
I'm actually started coaching skating for my kids, so I'm in the skating club coaching now, and I'm just amazed at how much impact you can have in these kids' lives by being a coach and bringing your faith values there. Not necessarily be preaching every training, but just be more open and more friendly than the average, and have that unconditional love for kids, especially the ones that are a little bit harder to coach. Be open and able to listen to their stories. It's really a beautiful thing. So yeah, it's a privileged position, probably, a coach, more than we realized.
Your chaplaincy work now, like what are you doing with that? And then what is Global Sports Sunday?
Yeah. So next to whatever I'm doing here in the Netherlands, I became part of an initiative called Global Sports Sunday. And basically, we're trying to build a global day of prayer for the community of sports. So we ask sports ministry organizations, but also churches, to set aside one day a year to just pray for the crazy opportunities there are in the world of sports. I mean, I don't know in your context, but here in the Netherlands, we have like 50%, more than 50% of the Dutch population doing sports on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. So that's, for us, the Netherlands is 8 million people. More than 8 million people. If we as Christians learn to be the hands and feet of Jesus in the sport context, we can reach those people. But I truly believe that every big move starts with prayer, right? So we're just calling on churches and also sports ministry organizations, saying like, hey, every big thing starts with prayer. So let's pray together on this day. So this year it will be on the 21st of September. And we got a website, Global Sports Sunday, where people can sign up and say like, hey, I'm praying, and then we'll support you in those prayers, or maybe in reaching out to your church with some extra resources. But just set aside at least one day a year to really pray for that. So that's the initiative that we're pushing.
Great. What was that website again? It was globalsportsunday.com, is it? Or
yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. Yeah, we've had Warren Evans on here before, and he talked about that. So good to look ahead to September as well, that day in there. Yeah, to pray by it. The organization we work for, SIM, we say it's by prayer, and so that every big move starts by prayer. So yeah, fantastic stuff. Well, Jan, thank you so much for your time. I loved hearing your story and digging around that a lot more, and it's inspirational. You're now being that person that you needed when you went through that as well. So continue to be a game changer in the lane that you're in. And
it's been great. Thanks, Jan, for everything. Appreciate your time.
Good job, guys.
Good stuff,
Man.
Benjamin.
Yeah, no, very good. And speed skating. You're in Milwaukee, which is big for speed skating, right? We did not know this.
Well, so first off, let me just say I forgot to share this. I learned. So my dad had a pair of speed skates. He was in university. He would speed skate across the lake when it froze where he was, and then he kept those. And he says to any of his sons who want to try, he'll take them out. So I did it. I was out on lakes. I was out on the track. I loved it. I just couldn't stop. My ankles were terrible. So I was like, this is not, I mean, I was never going to be anyone on the speed skating realm anyways, but it's a whole different, I don't know if you've ever ice skated. There's the figure skate, there's the hockey skate, and then there's the speed skate, and they're all different. So to be able to do what he did on the skates for that long a time, or just doing that, it's amazing. And then having it shift into marathon, that's true athleticism right there.
For sure. He's definitely an athlete. Thinking he can do 14 marathons in 40 days. Not many can do that. But yeah, I've seen it. I watched it on the Winter Olympics and stuff. And yeah, very impressive sport if people want to go and watch it and stuff. Yeah, but I was really interested. He talked about this idea of like his faith in sport, and actually he's wrestled with that for a long time, and he had to retire for a while and then had to wrestle that through. But now he's the guy that's helping others, right? And I think that light bulb moment, and I think we're, he said 50% of the Netherlands are playing sport. Like, what an opportunity around that. But I think we live in a time now, maybe fast forward, where we understand that the world of sport is a unique place, and we need to support people. That's why we've got so many organizations that do that. You mentioned AIA, there's many others that try and do that, right? But this, wrestling with this is such an important thing, isn't it? To understand how our faith impacts the world of sport, right? Such an important thing.
It is. I mean, it is. I mean, that's being a game changer. We're going to use this to its fullest. I mean, that's your life now is as a coach, as a mentor to someone else, even as a parent, right? You're providing a changing perspective, attitude, and hopefully some inspiration for their faith to be applied in all areas of your life, not just in sport.
For sure. And I was really struck by, to understand how to support someone in that world of sport, especially that elite world of sport, you have to know that world. And that was really, really, really clear from what Jan was saying, and now he's doing that now. But for us within Sports Friends, I think what's really important for us is that we train coaches who are in their worlds, that know what their local context, local cultures like. They know what the issues the young people are facing, and therefore they can address some of those things because they're there. And I think that's one reason why we do that, right? We obviously use the power of sport through the local church to train a coach who's able to then address some of those issues, right? So I just think that's important to understand, to really grasp the challenges that you go through in a particular world. Sport is a unique place, and especially within Sports Friends, right? We're fully behind that and fully understand that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't just have to go around the world to be a missionary, to be a youth sports ministry. It could just be across the street. So I think that's using that in that idea, the sport to be the bridge from something people enjoy, something people have fun with, to a faith, a challenge of faith and their spiritual life is a great tool.
Tell you what, that was a bit of awesome anecdote right there.
What's coming out now? Woohoo!
To be a missionary, you don't have to go across the world, you just go across the street. Come on. Well, ESMWWW, Jan said he's now got a cause where he did 40 marathons, 14 days to try and help people understand this connection. And he's working now for Next Move Sports, and he raised money for that. So, but my quote is this: work for a cause, not an applause. Work for a cause, not an applause. And that's what Jan is doing, right? He's working for a cause, not an applause. We're not looking for that applause. We're not looking for that cause. We're living for an audience of one. And we work for a cause, not an applause. And Jan's doing that right now. And that's what's driving him to motivate him to run 14 marathons in 14 days. What a crazy guy.
I don't think he drives at all. I think he runs everywhere.
He does indeed. Yeah, he runs and he eats whatever he wants. So
from behind the mountain, people.
Oh, it was good. I like having a direct speaking Dutchman. We need more of that. Straight talking, to the point. We appreciate the Dutch.
Ben, all Dutchmen are pretty direct, so I'm
That's
not sure.
That's why I said it. Oh, so you're now in-laws are Dutch, right? So
Oh yeah. Well,
you're being a game changer in that world, then, with your in-laws. There you go. It's Mad Dog. No matter who you are, where you're from, you got to know this: that God is the ultimate game changer, and we've just heard some gold dust, which is game changing. That's going to help you change the game in the lanes that you're in. What we're going to do, Mad Dog?
Get those friends, parents, friends. Get everyone, even the Frisians. Get them all. Already won.
All the Dutch in-laws.